This is episode 91 of the 99 Forever podcast. I'm Eric Friesen, and my guests tonight are each making their seventh appearance on the podcast. They are the two biggest Oilers fans in Brazil, Gabriel Candido and Diego Pontes. Guys, it's great to talk to you again.
No, it's amazing. The seventh time to be here. Who could imagine? When I started the Edmonton Oilers account on Twitter, I couldn't even think that I would be talking about the team in a podcast. For the seventh time, it's even more amazing. And as always, as in the seven times, it's always a pleasure to be here, talk to you guys, my friends, about the team that we all love.
Yes, and good evening, guys. Actually, hello to everyone, wherever you are. So here is at night, so that's why I said good evening. But uh, it is a pleasure to be here again. As Gabriel said, it's the seventh time, so we could never have imagined to be here talking about the Oilers with you, Eric. So thank you for that. So we appreciate a lot, and let's have a great conversation.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think it was 2021 the first time you were both on, and neither one of you actually knew each other, despite being Oilers fans in the same country. But Diego, you obviously lived in Edmonton at one time, and
Yeah.
Gabriel, you have a connection to this team, obviously telling that great story that started with Everybody Hates Chris about 15 years ago. So
Yeah,
it, interesting to hear, the backstory of how you guys became fans of the team. And now here we are 3 years later that we've been doing these podcasts, and I hope that we'll have many more years of conversations to come.
Yes, hopefully. So we will always have a blast talking to you.
Of course. And tonight we'll be recapping games 1 and 2 of the Edmonton Oilers' first round series against the Los Angeles Kings. And the energy was absolutely electric at Rogers Place on Monday night for the start of the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs. And the building just continued to get louder throughout the game as the Oilers scored early and often. Gabriel, home ice advantage in a playoff series is important for many reasons. But when you have a fan base as passionate as the Oilers do, how much more important do you think home ice advantage becomes?
so for sure, any team wants to have the home ice advantage. It's important for any team in NHL. But for the others, as anyone can see, it's different. When Robert Clark is singing the anthem on the crowd with everyone chanting as well, it's different. It's different. And in the first game, in the first moment before the game even starts, you can see that the crowd in Edmonton really breathes okay and wants to get to the playoffs, know that it's a different time, and wants to see McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, the whole team lifting the Stanley Cup again. But it's important more for the Edmonton Oilers as well, because in the regular season, the Oilers were the third team that had the third best record on home ice. So they just lost. They just are behind the Colorado Avalanche and the New York Rangers, which are two great teams. And considering the difficult start that the Oilers had, they still have a great record at home. Even better when Chris Noblash got the coaching on the team. So that's even more important, that the Oilers play well in Edmonton, and the crowd is um, out of this world. Is just amazing.
And Diego, do you think the Oilers' incredible fan support can really help fuel the success of this team?
Absolutely, 100%. As Gabriel said, our fans are amazing. So we have an electrifying atmosphere at Rogers Place, and then our their record actually speak for themselves, right? It's 28-94 at home this season, so this is a great record to have. No block has really changed the way this team should play at home. So this is something that we should be proud, because this is gonna be a really good weapon when we advance, and hopefully we're gonna advance to further rounds this year. So I totally believe that the Oilers fans are the best in the NHL. You know, they're one of the loudest, most passionate fans, and they're gonna bring it. They're gonna bring this crazy and loud atmosphere to every home game, and this is gonna make a difference.
Oh, definitely. I believe the playoff atmosphere in Edmonton is unrivaled. This city lives and breathes Oilers hockey, and much like soccer in Brazil, hockey in Edmonton is religion. And
Yes.
as I mentioned off the top, there are a lot of benefits to playing at home, such as sleeping in your own bed instead of a hotel, having last change, knowing the bounces in your own arena. But I think playing in front of arguably the most passionate and dedicated fans in the NHL not only
Yeah.
gives the Oilers a major boost, but it also makes it a difficult place for the opposing team to play. I mean, it's like you said, look at their record at Rogers Place, especially since November when Knoblauch came over. The Oilers do have 28 home wins this season, which was the third most in the league, as you pointed out. And
Yeah.
several Oilers players have even said in their media avails this week how amazing the fans are in Edmonton, especially during the playoffs. And you look how many former Oilers come back to watch games at Rogers Place. We saw this week Ladislav Smid and
Yeah.
Georges Laraque. These are
Mhm.
guys who haven't played for the team for 10, 15 years, and the loyalty that they still have to this team is incredible. So when you have a chance to play for the Oilers, it's a very special thing. And speaking of former Oilers who are actually still current NHL players, Klim Kostin was at Rogers Place for Game 1, and he now,
Yes.
of course, plays for the San Jose Sharks. And he was even wearing his Oilers jersey at the game. Diego, did seeing Kostin at the arena make you wish he was back out on the ice instead of watching from the stands?
No doubt, Eric. I would love to have Clean Shady back, as some people used to call him. So Clean was amazing. He was a guy who really embraced the city, the fans, the team, and this made a huge difference. So he became to be a fan favorite in the city among the fans. He used to play with passion. He's a tough guy, so we appreciate that. Most Oilers fans, they like the tough guys, that can go on a fight, and stand for their team. And I think Clint Costin, he fills all of these spaces, these blank spaces that uh, we didn't have in the past. Let's say let's be honest. So he's a very passionate player, and he's a funny guy too. I would love to have. I have all the time in the world for Clint Costin back in Edmonton, and I hope this off season we go after him. Why not? Maybe we the Oilers could retain some money and bring him back. Maybe they could place a deal with San Jose actually, and who knows? I would love to have him back. He could be a great player on our bottom six, and and he's a funny guy. He has lots of uh, interesting uh,
Oh, definitely.
traits of.
He had some funny
I don't know. I
interviews
don't know
during his time in
what to say,
Edmonton.
but I think he's a great guy. Not only that, but besides being a great guy, he's a good player, solid bottom six player. So I think we would love to have him back. What do you think?
Yeah, and Gabriel, would you like to see Costin back with the Oilers in the future?
No, he would help a lot on the bottom six. As Diego said, he engaged the team. He can seek for. He didn't hide himself when it's needed. He goes for a fight. He goes for a goal. He plays whenever he needs to play. But the Oilers actually offered him, as I heard, to stay in Edmonton, but he searched for a better salary, which was more than double what the Oilers offered him did when he went to Detroit, and now he's in San Jose. If he can fix like the salary, the salary that he receives, if like San Jose can retain some of them on a trade, because we have no doubt, as we saw on Game 2, that he wants to get back in Edmonton, and I believe that he kind of regrets searching for a bigger salary and not being on ice with McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, this amazing team when it matters the most. That is the playoffs. And he's a character already in Edmonton. Everybody remembers his amazing goal in game two, I believe, last year that put the Oilers ahead on the score and tied the series on 1-1. And but would be great. The salary, the money is the main thing. It was the main thing at the beginning of the season, and keeps to be on the Oilers being tight on the salary cap. But him and the crowd, for sure, nobody would go against having Clean Costin back in Edmonton.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, think of it like this: he still is playing for the San Jose Sharks, and I'm sure their management didn't love seeing him in the crowd wearing a rival team's jersey, especially a team that he used to play for. But as the saying goes, once an Oiler, always an Oiler. And I'm glad he loved his time here, and it was pretty clear, like that Oilers fans wanted him to come back. I really wanted them to re-sign him, but as you pointed out, Diego, he was looking for a higher salary, and it's unfortunate that money got in the way with it. I said that I think the opportunity to win a Stanley Cup should outweigh trying to make an extra $1 million here or there, because he still is a young player, and there's plenty of time to make money down the road. But you were on a contending team, and like you said, a pivotal part of the bottom six. So I would have really appreciated if he came back, but they couldn't come to terms. So that's when he was included in that trade with Kyler Yamamoto to Detroit to clear cap space. And also, yeah, it's as you pointed out, he scored some big goals in the playoffs against the Kings last year, but that unfortunately priced him out. And I mean, he still does have 1 year left on his deal with the Sharks, and I think if he was willing to re-sign for the league minimum a year from now, I would have interest in bringing him back. But it also depends if there are any Oilers prospects pushing for roster spots by that time. But nonetheless, he was a popular player in Oil Country for a short time. And even if he is never back with the team, I think he'll always have fans here.
And he found his best hockey in Edmonton, because when he arrived in a trade with Dmitry Samorukov, if I'm not mistaken, like the expectations were not high for him. So he really found his best in Edmonton, and he knows that, like, he has a lot of ice time in the San Jose Sharks. He himself declared that the biggest difference playing San Jose is that he plays on the first line.
He's getting to play a lot more. He has a bigger role on the team. But I think if I had to choose between being on the fourth line on a Stanley Cup contender or the top line for the worst team in the league, it would be a pretty easy decision. I mean, I was at the game about 10, 11 days ago when the Oilers beat the Sharks 9-2, and of course McDavid picked up his 100th assist of the season. So I did feel kind of bad for Clement on that night, but ultimately, it was a pretty memorable night, just getting to see a historic milestone for McDavid too.
And an interesting fact, he didn't get. He wasn't at fault of any of the goals that San Jose suffered, which was awesome, So
didn't he finish the night without a minus rating?
Yes, it was like 0 or something positive,
It was even, I believe. It was the plus minus was 0. I had to check, but I believe if it was at the maximum, it was -1. But if a team suffers 9 goals, it's such an amazing stat.
Yeah. Yes, someone posted on Instagram that he didn't interfere like in any of the Oilers goals, so he wasn't at fault. That was amazing.
Still an Oiler at heart. All right, let's talk about game one now. Zach Hyman scored his first career playoff hat trick, and Connor McDavid tallied 5 assists to propel the Oilers to a 7-4 win and a 1-0 series lead. Gabriel, the Oilers have won 3 of the last playoff series they've played in, despite losing game 1 in each of them. So they've shown that they can come back in a series, even when they face a deficit. But how crucial was it for this team to win game 1 for the first time in 7 years?
Well, since 1990, the Oilers didn't win a game 1 in Edmonton, so it was right. And I think it's I don't even need to say what happens in the Stanley Cup final in 1990, but was amazing. It was amazing to see the Oilers finally getting the game one. It was starting to become like a taboo, especially against the Los Angeles Kings 2 times in a row. But even if they with the loss on game two, the Oilers already proved it by the another two series against Los Angeles that they can recover, they can find themselves their best again, they can reshape and play a different game and correct their mistakes. Like on last year, it was the game five, and the Kings were leading, or oh, sorry, it was 2-2, and the Kings were leading 3-0 at the after the first period, and even after that, the Oilers found themselves. The Oilers could tie the game, and then Zach Hyman won it on overtime. And if the Oilers didn't have that, the Kings would have a 3-1 lead. It would be way hard, difficult to recover. But it was great. It was great to see the Oilers finally getting a game one, which they didn't win at any place, not only in Edmonton since 2017 in that series against the Anaheim Ducks. But it's great. Just reinforces the home ice advantage that the Oilers have, and also that they can win in Edmonton, but they can win as well out of Edmonton.
And Diego, how important was it for the Oilers to not fall behind in a series with the Kings for the third straight year?
It was extremely important. I think it raised the team's morale. This first win, as Gabriel said, so this first win at home brought some good memories, right? Why not? 1990 all over again. So we'll never know. So
we can hope.
We hope for that, right?
Yeah,
that's the plan. Yes, I think it was extremely important, and the Oilers have proven they can come back in a game. They've shown themselves as a resilient team. So they've been a lot of adversity this year, and they could find a way to overcome them. So I'm not worried about this series, the results. I think, yes, the first game was excellent, to have, because it brings more confidence and a sense of calmness to the team, to the fans especially, So we are a very passionate fan base. So imagine for the third straight year, the Oilers losing the game one. So there would have been a meltdown, among the fans. And I think this first win brings some sense of tranquility, calmness to the fan base, So I'm really confident that this first win has helped the team.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And maybe they're going to be ready, for the next game, even hungrier than they showed on the first game. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a statement win for the Oilers. Right from the opening shift, they were taking it to the Kings, and the Oilers jumped out to a 4-0 lead in the second period, and the game was really never in doubt after that. The big guns dominated. The power play was on fire. I thought they were strong on the forecheck, winning back pucks down low. The forwards also applied good back pressure, and it was good to see them supporting the defense. They were disciplined in their own zone, and they were physical, but also didn't take a bunch of unnecessary penalties, which you like to see. Now, they did take their foot off the gas a bit in the third period and allowed the Kings to make the final score look closer than the game actually was. But ultimately, the Oilers were clearly the better team in this game by some margin. And as you mentioned, Gabriel, already, I mean, the Oilers snapped their streak of 7 straight game one losses. It was their first game one victory since April 26, 2017, as well as their first game one victory on home ice since May 2nd, 1990, when they were still playing at Northlands Coliseum. This is, of course, the first win that they've had in a game one situation in Rogers Place. All right, so as I mentioned, McDavid and Hyman led the way offensively in game one. Let's start by talking about Hyman tonight. He netted a hat trick and added an assist en route to a decisive win for the Orange and Blue on Monday. Diego, is there anyone better in the league than Hyman at finishing off plays in tight around the net?
I don't think so, Eric. If there is anybody, please let me know because I can't see it. Jaime is one of the best, free agent signs of all time. So, full stop. I don't think there is anybody better than him, and we couldn't be thankful enough for the Maple Leafs to let him go, to Edmonton because he has been outstanding. He has had an outstanding year. He should have been an all-star, like we discussed, And I totally believe that he's gonna be a difference maker during these playoffs. He totally deserves every single praise that he has been getting because he's a guy who works hard. He never misses a shift without fighting and bringing his best. And this is something that the fans appreciate. We appreciate, and we love that. So this is an excellent fit. He fit like a glove to McDavid. And I think this is just the beginning. Aside from McDavid and Draisaitl, I think Hyman is the third most important player nowadays on this team. So, and I mean, no disrespect to Ekholm because he's a monster defenseman, but I think he's the third most important player on this team, and he's a difference maker.
And Gabriel, Hyman always seems to be in the right places at the right times to score goals, doesn't he?
54 goals in the regular season and starting the playoffs with a hat trick. I believe not even the greatest Hyman fan could imagine him having such a great season. And for a guy that came from free from Toronto, as Diego said, we have to thank Toronto for letting him come from for free from Edmonton, and it's great. It's just amazing, and everybody can say, "Oh, but he plays with McDavid, it makes it easier." Of course, it makes it easier to play with McDavid, which is the best player in the world. But we saw how many wingers McDavid had in the Edmonton Oilers since he arrived in Edmonton, and nobody came closer to have the numbers that Hyman has. Only like Leon Draisaitl had numbers like that, but we know that he is a center. He plays mostly on second line. He doesn't play the majority of time with McDavid. So it's outstanding, as Diego said. It's like an outstanding season from him, from a guy who came on the draft from the 5th round. It's amazing to have Zach Hyman playing for the Oilers, and he can even get better and better with the playoffs.
And Gabriel, you made a good point there, and I want to expand on that. Just because you play with Connor McDavid doesn't mean that you're going to have instant chemistry or that it's a guarantee that you're going to score a ton of goals. How many wingers have been tried with McDavid and it hasn't worked out? So yes, Hyman playing with McDavid certainly helps, but you don't score 54 goals by accident. This guy knows how to put the puck in the net, and he really should have been an all-star too, as Diego mentioned before. It's a farce that a guy who had that type of a season didn't get to play in the all-star game.
No, he definitely should have like his numbers. Like it was way from the players that weren't selected for the All Star. He was the one that had the way better numbers than the others. But yeah, the All Star had this policy of only one player per team, and then the popular vote, which doesn't always take the best player, and he has the best, the bigger crowd that the team has.
Well, I mean, did the Toronto Maple Leafs and Vancouver Canucks each need 4 players there? Meanwhile, the Oilers could only send McDavid and Draisaitl.
But that doesn't change, I believe. Like the important is the on ice production that he's having, and I believe that he's at the peak of his career, and he can only get better with the ongoing games on these playoffs.
Yeah, I think we'll always look back on the season and say the guy who finished third in the league in goals didn't get voted into the All-Star game. But I mean, I thought that game one of this series was arguably Hyman's best game as an Oiler. He scored in all three periods, and he had another couple quality chances, including hitting a post. So he easily could have ended up with 4 or 5 goals that night. And Hyman's hat trick in game one also gave him 57 goals in 81 games this year between the regular season and playoffs. And those numbers would have been unfathomable to even the most optimistic Oilers fan when he signed here back in 2021. And although Hyman might not be the flashiest player you'll ever see, he consistently finds ways to put the puck in the back of the net. And that's really all that matters. He isn't afraid to drive to the front of the net and battle to score goals in the dirty areas. And look, he knows how lucky he is to be fed pucks by the best player in the world. But McDavid is also lucky to have a winger like Hyman who converts on a high percentage of his scoring opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. And Hyman has a great shot too. No, he has learned how to shoot better, I think.
I mean, we're kind of skipping ahead, but look at the one-timer he had in game 2.
Yes.
And he can wire a wrist or two. I can think of several this year where he's fired home a shot, and sometimes he catches you off guard with a really nice move because so often his goals are scored through hard work and determination in front of the net, much like Ryan Smith when he played for the Oilers. But, Hyman, I think, does have more talent than he often gets credit for.
Yes, and as you said, he's always at the right places, over the ice. So this helps a lot, It's like he dominates the crease, from the opponent side. And it's amazing because he's always circulating, around the net, trying to crush the net. And I love that. I think we like you guys said, we haven't seen a winger like this who has worked like this, and this is one of his biggest qualities. And so Hyman has been a blessing to the city, to the fans, and to the team. That's all.
I mean, rarely does a guy have a career year at age 31.
Yes.
Usually by now, most offensive players are starting to decline a little bit. I mean, the great players can obviously stay at the top for a longer period of time, but Hyman is one of those guys that later in his career is turning out to be better than he was in his 20s. So maybe he can even keep this up for another 2 or 3 years where he's at, even if he drops back to a 40-goal pace. I would say that most Oilers fans would be happy with that. What do you think, Gabriel?
No, for sure. Nobody expected that he would have a 50-goal season. And if you start at the beginning of the season, who will be the leader in goals in Edmonton? Everybody would say, oh, it's McDavid or Draisaitl. A few people, almost nobody would say Zach Hyman. But if you are the leader in goals in a team that has McDavid and Draisaitl,
I was going to say that's a remarkable feat in itself.
It's already.
There's 2 MVPs and former scoring champions on your team, and you scored more goals than they did this season.
Yeah, no, but we know that it's hard. It's way hard to see another season that scores 50. I hope to see even more. But even if he decreases a little bit his numbers, the other fans will be amazed and will enjoy himself because the chemistry he has with McDavid, and as I said, Adam Henrique has just got in the team and they already work well together at the moment. So Zach Hyman, McDavid chemistry in the first line, the main line of the Edmonton Oilers is just amazing, and it's hard to find even having the best player in the world playing at center.
Right, and even if Hyman does drop down to 40 next year or in the high 30s, I don't think the Oilers are going to take that big of a hit because I expect McDavid will be back over 50 goals next year. He only finished with 32 this season, but in a fully healthy year, I believe that McDavid is a good bet for 50 goals. And Leon Draisaitl, even by his very high standards, had a bit of a down year scoring-wise this season. So there's a good chance that McDavid and Draisaitl will both be north of 50 goals again in 2024-25. So Hyman still pushing for 40 goals would be huge for this team. It might be tough for him to top 54. There's very few players in the league that are capable of putting up that kind of total, but it's something that no one can ever take away from him. He did it once, and that's the main thing. And
Yes.
while Hyman keeps piling up the goals, McDavid also continues to rack up the assists. McDavid turned in another out-of-this-world performance in Game 1, picking up 5 helpers, including the primary assist on all 3 of Hyman's goals. Gabriel, this was one of those nights when it just isn't fair how great he is it?
I can't choose which assist is the best for me. Like he gave the first or second one because I lost myself because it's 5. I can remember exactly what it was and which goal that he does turn around and does a perfect pass by his back, and then he just minutes later he does another behind the goal in the area that Gretzky mastered when he played, and then gave to Zach Hyman, which we were talking a lot uh, in a few minutes, and it's out of this world. Like it's really unfair to have Conor McDavid when he is inspired, when he is at his best. No team can hold him. No defenseman. Nobody. Like we saw, it looks like everyone says like he plays. It's like playing in the video game in the easiest possible mode to have Conor McDavid. Like it seems like it wasn't hard for him to have a 5 assist night on a game 1 of the playoffs of the NHL.
And Diego, what can you say about McDavid's performance in Game 1?
Absolutely amazing. McDavid, like you guys said, we don't have enough words to describe how amazing he is, how good of a player he is, and how much of a difference maker he is and has been for the city, for the team, and in the playoffs. Some people call him as a playoff monster, and it's totally understandable why. you know, we totally understand because he raises his game. He he tries to bring the best every night, and he makes a difference. He changes the pace of the team, the willing to fight. So McDavid was outstanding on game 1, and he could have had more points if he wanted. And in my opinion, guys, I think he decided to be humble and say, okay, 5 is enough. But I totally believe that McDavid has been a difference maker for this team. He's an amazing player. The way he skates, he passes through the defense. He cuts through the defense. When he set the plays on a power play, how can you not be like mesmerized by the way he plays and he skates around the ice? It's absolutely entertaining for us as fans. We love to see him on the ice, and I don't know, guys. I don't think I have enough words to describe how lucky we are in having McDavid playing for the Oilers.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, sorry. And just to compliment, like we can see that he plays, as Diego said, with passion, that he wants to win in Edmonton. Like,
Yes.
we can see that he doesn't care if he got like 5 assists, 10, 15 points at night. He just wants to win. He already won the Memorial Hart, the Art Ross. His focus right now, we can see, is to win and get to the Stanley Cup.
Oh, without a doubt. And I mean, as you kind of alluded to, Gabriel, a few minutes ago, McDavid truly is the definition of a cheat code. He became just the 14th player in NHL history to record 5 assists in a playoff game, and the first since Jeff Courtnall on April 23rd, 1998, almost 26 years ago to the day. Courtnall also won a Stanley Cup with the Oilers back in 1988. And incredibly, this was McDavid's 5th 5-point game of the 2024 calendar year. And we're only in April. It's also his second 5-assist game. And it's not just that he had 5 helpers in game 1, but he did it in such spectacular fashion. I mean, on Hyman's first goal, he pulled off an outstanding spinorama to get around Mikey Anderson. And on Hyman's second, he made another spin move out of the corner to set up Hyman for the backdoor pass, and McDavid also registered his 50th career playoff assist and 80th career playoff point that night in his 50th career playoff game. And that gave him the third most points in NHL history through 50 games, behind only Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux, who had 104 and 101 respectively. And if you followed McDavid at all during this season, you're starting to see his name pop up with lists that only include Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux more and more. So all in all, it was a phenomenal performance for the Oilers captain. And
Yes.
sorry, go ahead, Diego.
No, and he's the playoff leader in points, right?
Only 2 games in, but yeah, he's on top in assists and points at the moment, and Hyman is the leader in goals.
Yes, can you imagine that? It only took 2 games to be the playoff leader in points. He's amazing, guys. It's like you said, we don't have enough words to describe how amazing he is.
And, I know he didn't end up winning his 6th Art Ross trophy this season, but it's a remarkable feat that he was in the lead for 1 day this season. If you think about it, he had a terrible start to the season. Obviously, the injury really set him back. And once he got healthy around American Thanksgiving, he took off and was basically a 2-point-per-game player for the rest of the year. And that's sort of the standard that we've got used to seeing him at the past couple of years, at least since the 2022 playoffs. And the fact that he was so far behind Kucherov and McKinnon. I mean, even after really picking up the scoring, he was still about 10 points behind them at the All-Star break. And by late March, he had not only closed the gap, but completely caught up to them and passed them for 1 day until Kucherov and McKinnon both passed him again. And then he ended up finishing in 3rd in the scoring race. But that is maybe one of his most remarkable accomplishments in a career that's been full of them, that he was at one point not in the top 100 in the league in scoring back in mid-November, and that he was able to catch up and briefly overtake the top 2 scorers in the league. So that's the kind of player that we've been accustomed to watching for the past 9 years in Edmonton. Like we said, he's won 5 scoring titles and just continued to carry that dominant level of play over into the playoffs now, and that's a great sign for this team. And while McDavid and Hyman made all the headlines in Game 1, the third man on that line, Adam Henrique, also notched a goal and assist. Diego, how have you liked Henrique on the top line so far?
I've loved it. Henrique, it reminds me of Nugent Hopkins playing on that line, because he has, in my opinion, some characteristics that are quite similar to Nugent Hopkins' game. So he's a defensive minded forward, so he helps the plays on the offensive ice. I don't know if he can skate as well as Nugent Hopkins, or he can keep up with McDavid's speed, but I don't think this is a reason to be concerned, because so far he has been a great fit to that line, and I hope to see him playing more games with McDavid. He shows he has a great shot. That goal was beautiful on Game 1, and I think if we give space to him, he can rip the puck and score much more goals. So I really liked his game, and I think if I were the coach, I would keep him on the first line, because McDavid works well with these kind of players, so they can open space, they can open lanes, so McDavid can make some plays. And we have a shooter in Hyman nowadays, so this is a great thing to have, a great problem to have. I think Henrique could be playing in any position, right? Could be a center, could be center in the 3rd line, or maybe the 4th line if you want to get more depth. But on the first line, he has been a great surprise, a solid addition, and this allows Nugent Hopkins and Draisaitl to play together, which I particularly like. So I really like his game, and I already made a post saying that I would reserve my judgment and comments after the playoff is over and hopefully with the Oilers winning a cup. But so far, Henrik has surprised me in a good way. I really like his game.
And Gabriel, how do you think Henrique has looked alongside McDavid and Hyman?
No, I gotta admit that like as a lot of Oilers fans, when I saw that Henrique was traded to Edmonton, I just thought, oh my God, like they gave a first for a third line center, and I was a little skeptical about him playing. But then they put them in the second line with Leon Draisaitl and Warren Fogle, and then he already played great there. And now they are putting him in the first one with McDavid and Hyman, which we know how difficult it is to find wingers to play with McDavid, and he's performing even better. Even great. So now it's great to see Adam Rick. It was worth it to bring him to Edmonton. He is playing a major part in the Oilers team, mostly on the playoffs. When he arrived, we always had a name such as Tyler Toffoli, Jake Jones, so who could be here and was the main options, but he proved himself that he himself can be a great player, an important player, and one of the keys for the Edmonton to find even more success in these amazing forward lines that the team has.
Yeah, I think that he might have not been the number one name that Oilers fans were hoping for at the deadline. You mentioned some of them. Toffoli would probably be the one that most Oilers fans were after. Pavel Buchnevich, his name was thrown out there. Even Vladimir Tarasenko, although he made it clear very early on that he was only interested in going to Florida. But we have to remember, this was Adam Henrique's first playoff game in 6 years. And he hadn't been a part of a victory in the playoffs since going all the way to the Stanley Cup final as a rookie back in 2012. He also broke an NHL record by going the longest drought between playoff goals scored, a span of nearly 12 years. His last one coming during that playoff run with the Devils, like I said, in his rookie year. It was over 4,300 days in total, I believe. So good for him to finally get that first goal in more than a decade. And it was a great shot, too. Just a laser of a wrist shot from range, and also picked up an assist in the game, as I mentioned. So good to see him fitting in well there. We saw this line put together late in the regular season. And at first I thought, if McLeod is capable of holding down the third line center spot, then it does give you the flexibility to move Henrique into the top six. But I really didn't want to break up that top line of McDavid, Hyman, and Nugent Hopkins, because that was the best line in hockey all season. So it could have been a bit of a risky play there by head coach Chris Knobloch to split them up. But as you mentioned before, Diego, Henrique has a lot of the similar traits to Nugent Hopkins. He is a two-way forward. He can kill penalties, so he can be the defensive conscious on that line a little bit. He still does have some offensive skills, and that's probably why he has fit so well with McDavid and Draisaitl. So I've liked that line so far. I'm still not opposed to Nugent Hopkins sliding back in there at some point during the playoffs, but Nugent Hopkins and Draisaitl also have chemistry, having played together in the past too. So maybe having Henrique out there allows this team to spread out the talent a little bit more, and give Draisaitl another high-end winger to play with as well. So I don't mind this the way the lines are currently constructed. I'll take it back to you, Diego. What do you think? Would you prefer to see Nugent Hopkins back on the top line with McDavid and Hyman, or do you like the way it's currently set up?
I like the actual lineup, but I'm not against the idea of having Nugent Hopkins back at the lineup at the first line, as long as it allows Draisaitl have better line mates. And I don't know, I'm not sure what is the best line combination for Leon, but I really like the way it's set up for now, because it allows, like I said, Ryan Nugent Hopkins to play with Draisaitl, and I think they can work well together, as we saw in the past, right? When they They had a line with Yamamoto as
Yeah,
well.
back in the 2019-20 season, that was the best line in the
Yes,
league for a span of 2 months as
one of
well.
the best
Yeah.
lines, exactly.
Uh,
And I love Dry and Nuge together. I think they should keep that way, because Henrique has done a good job. But in case there's a need to change and bring more offensive power, like you said, the first line was one of the best lines in the league in the regular season. So we have this chance. We have enough depth to switch the lines and find the best line combination possible. But I'm not sure that breaking up those lines for now will be a good idea, since they have been working well against the Kings. So we should keep that way because we bring a lot of balance to the team, you know. And I think we weren't lucky enough this last game. So I wouldn't blame the lines, because of the past game. I think we have enough balance and depth. So I'm hoping for better results in a better game from the second line, especially. So I really like the first line as the way it is.
and Gabriel, have you seen enough from Henrique so far that you think the Oilers should try to re-sign him, or is it still too early to make that decision?
Well, if he has, I don't know exactly how many games he has in Edmonton already, but the playoffs will be a major part of it if the Oilers are resigning here or not. How he produced, he already proved, as we said, that he can be a major part of the team,
He played
and even if
22
they,
games with the Oilers down the stretch, by the way. Not 6 goals and 9 points in 22 games, so just under half a point per game.
yeah, it's a good amount, but I think the playoff production that will have like a more solid idea of how Henry can, if he stays, how the others are treating it. But in the lines, I believe has a top six spot guaranteed. Like if even if he drops from the McDavid and Zach Hyman first line, he'll play in second with Draisaitl, with Warren Fogle, and he has already proved that he can handle it. And mostly because Ryan, it will depend on how Ryan McLeod can be on third line, as you already said, Eric, and even more with Dylan Holloway, how he is playing on third line and keeping it strong. If the third or fourth line depends on how Nabla
Yeah.
put the team together with Evander Kane or Dylan Holloway, but the younger ones are already proving that they can handle the pressure on the big games. And leaving the best players to play on more and more minutes.
The contract comes into it too, right? We have no idea what sort of salary
Yeah.
Henrique would be looking for on a new deal. But I mean, if it does only turn out to be a rental, which I'm guessing that's how the Oilers viewed it when they made the trade, then so be it. But I really have liked the fit with the team. So whether he ends up playing on the first or second line, I think it's something that the Oilers should explore. And we do know that the salary cap is going up $4 million this summer. However, about $3 million of that is going to get taken up with Connor Brown's bonus. So that really only leaves the Oilers an additional $1 million on the cap than they would have had to spend this season. So doubtful that he's coming back for that type of money. It would have to be a situation where probably someone else is getting moved out to clear space to retain Henrique, but they also have to look further down the line because Draisaitl needs a new contract, which will kick in the following season, and so does Bouchard. So locking up a player to maybe a 3 or 4 year deal isn't something that they want to make a commitment to just now, but I think that Henrique is at least giving them he's giving them at least something to think about, that he's a player that they should consider bringing back. All right. One of the biggest reasons for the Oilers' success against the Kings in the playoffs the past two seasons was their unbelievable power play. And coming into the series, the Oilers had the fourth best power play in the league this season, while the Kings had the second ranked penalty kill. But in game one, the Oilers scored three of their four power play opportunities. Gabriel, how encouraging was it for you to see the power play go up against one of the top penalty killing teams in the league and get the better of them?
When you see like 75% of success against a team that is so good on the penalty kill, like of course that's a major part of the 7-4 win in the game one. So it encourages. We know like we have when you put a team with McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Evan Bouchard, who has played. We didn't talk a lot about him. I know we'll talk soon about, and because of McDavid's five assist night, but he has such a great game one as well.
Yeah, we can go there right now. I mean, Bouchard is a big factor on that power play. I mean, we know what McDavid and Hyman did, but if you want to just go on your thoughts on Bouchard and how valuable he was, go ahead. I mean, he picked up a quiet 4 assists in that game as well. And it's very rare that a player has 4 points in a game and no one's talking about him.
Yeah, of course, it was because of the 5 assists of McDavid and how McDavid got the 5 assists. It was amazing to see. 1 assist was better than the last one. But when a team puts such a great power play, it's a major part. The Los Angeles Kings knows that they gotta stay out of the penalty box if they want to win, they want to search. Because when the Oilers power play plays as they know, with all these major guns, as I said, like David Draisaitl, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, and Evan Bouchard, like it's even the second best penalty kill of the season. Found it was way hard to defend, as we saw with three goals on 4 opportunities.
And Diego, is it fair to say that the team that wins the special teams battle will likely win this series?
Yes, no doubt. It's like Vancouver. Vancouver has a great team, but they're taking advantage of the special teams, to win some games. And I think the Oilers are ahead of these teams. They have an excellent power play, and I've seen some comments. I've read a couple comments that some players had some tricks, hidden on their sleeves. It's like their power play was not as good as it's being shown now on this postseason. So it looks like they were hiding, they were hiding a couple tricks, and they're putting in action now. They're trying to use it during these games, and it has paid dividends because we've seen this team struggle at times during the power play, and it looks like that all of a sudden they unlocked, the.
Well, that's why I like that they switched up their formation in game one, because down the stretch there was a patch there where the power play wasn't very good at all. And I think that really put the Kings back on their heels, switching it up, having McDavid and Draisaitl go to opposite ends of the offensive zone and really get the Kings out of sorts. It makes them think, what are they doing? Because while the Oilers do have many different weapons on the power play, everyone knows that the number one option is always McDavid to Draisaitl for the one-timer. And it's hard to blame them. It's such an effective tool. I would say it's the Oilers' second greatest weapon after McDavid's speed in terms of the whole overall the team. But when you can change it up a little bit and get the Kings out of their routine and sort of everything that they've been talking about in practice the last 2 days in their meetings of here's how we're going to defend the Oilers power play, when you can change it up and kind of get them to start rethinking what they're doing, it probably opens up a few more lanes. And obviously it worked for the Oilers because, like you said, Gabriel, before, they converted 75% of their opportunities. And I mean, even if you're clicking on 2 of those, you're really happy with that. And I think that the Oilers power play does have the potential to be over 30% for the series. Last year, I think it was 58% at one point, and still finished just above 50 in the series against the Kings in 2023. So that's something that they definitely want to continue over this year. And Diego, I just want to also give you a chance to talk about something that Gabriel spoke about before. But do you think that Bouchard should be getting more attention for the game that he had in the opening night of the playoffs?
Yes. I think Bouchard sometimes lacks a little bit of urgency in some plays. I think he could play with a little bit more of urgency and make some fast plays and be careful to pass the puck sometimes. But if he raises his game, he improves and try to play like with a little bit more of urgency, I think he's going to be a difference maker. Because on the first game he played really well, but he made some mental mistakes, a couple mistakes. The same applied on the second game, and he has the potential to be even better than he actually is. And he has shown that he can score a lot of points. He's an excellent offensive defenseman, but you know what? No block said in one of his interviews that defense wins championships. And I think this sentence could be enough for Bouchard to use in his game and shape his game a little bit better. So we really count on him to be this difference maker because we have a great defensive team. They can also score some points. They can pile up a couple points. But some of them need to be more defensive-minded, you know.
And I think that's a fair criticism. Yeah, huh? I think that's a fair criticism to say that Bouchard needs to improve his defensive play, especially when he's on the top pairing. So you're going to be going up against the other team's best forwards night after night. I've always said, though, I mean, he is still young, so he probably will improve. But I don't think he's ever going to be an elite defensive defenseman. That's not what the Oilers drafted him for. They drafted him because of his elite offensive skills. And that's why he's on the power play and has such an important role on it. That's why he did put up 82 points as a defenseman this year. And Ekholm, who also had a career year offensively, is going to be the guy you're going to be relying on to do most of the heavy lifting defensively on that pair. So I think we have to keep expectations for Bouchard, especially at this point of our career, in check for what he's going to be able to do on the defensive side of the puck. Is he going to turn it over from time to time? Yes. Are there going to be times where he makes a play that was ill-advised and it leads to a scoring chance for the team? Sure. But you just have to sort of work through him on this and remember that what he brings at the other end of the ice far outweighs the odd mistake that he makes in his own end.
Yes, I agree.
No, yeah,
And sorry, Gabriel, go ahead.
No problem at all. Just to emphasize that, like 82 points in a season. Like when we talk about Evan Bouchard, we gotta focus on his offensive.
If a forward puts up 82 points in a season, that's elite production. When a defenseman does it, it's almost unheard of. He was just the 24th defenseman in the history of the league to put up 82 points. Think about that.
Yeah, and he'll never be the defensive defenseman, as you already said. He knows that the Edmonton Oilers knows that he will make some mistakes as any other player will have, but we know that we will see that. But I think like playing with Mattias Ekholm, it's such a great thing for him. Mattias Ekholm is such an elite defensive defenseman, and he if there is one guy that can help him to improve this side, or even cover from the focus that the Bouchard has on the offensive side, it's Mattias Ekholm. Like this first defensive line, it's well aligned.
They couldn't have found a better partner for him.
Yes,
I mean Duncan Keith was a good partner for Bouchard earlier in his career a couple of years ago, but it's gotten even better since Ekholm came to town. And we talked about Hyman continuing to get better in his 30s. I mean, there really hasn't been any drop off in play for Ekholm at age 32 now, and he'll be 33 this summer. This is a guy who some people maybe thought, well, you're trading for a guy with 3 years left on his deal. It's a bit of an older defenseman, but he just continues to get better and has the highest plus minus rating in the entire league since he came to Edmonton on March 1st, 2023. So yeah, that pair has been better than we could have expected. And when you look on some of the advanced number charts, like I only have a relatively basic understanding of analytics and how they're used to evaluate a player. Yeah. But when you look at the pairings in the league, anytime you see the top defensive pairings, Bouchard and Ekholm are always one of them. So that's a pairing that consistently outscores the opposition. And clearly that pair surpassed Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci early on this season as the Oilers' top pairing. And lastly, just before we move on, I want to talk about Stuart Skinner. Now, if you look at his numbers from game 1, 4 goals allowed on 37 shots isn't great, but he made some big saves at key times to keep his team in the lead. Diego, how well do you think Skinner played in game 1?
I think he played really well. He had no fault, and those fluky goals that he got at the end of the game on the third period. And he played really solid. He made a couple nice saves, and he showed passion. I think he was really ready, aware of the game. And for some reason on the game 2, I didn't see this much of confidence that he had on game 1. He was really confident. He was ready. He was excited, and also he raised his game. This game could have had a big gap in terms of score. It should have been like 7-2, but for some reason, some lucky bounces came against him. Went against him, and it happens. Such is life. But in my opinion, Skinner played really well, and I'm expecting him to play much better on this game 3. He's a great goalie. And guys, since you're listening to me now, I would like to say I'm sorry for my recent post, because I got very passionate, about that game, and I said a couple things about Skinner that I regretted. And I think he's a very capable goalie. He's a talented goalie. He was developed by the Oilers, and he has shown these last 2 years that he could hold this position as a starter. And I totally believe in him. I have faith in him that he will rebound and have a much better game. But this game 1, he was great for the team. And that's the Skinner we needed.
And you know what, Diego, I don't think anyone questions your love for the team or loyalty. And that's awesome that you apologize to Skinner. I don't know if he's ever going to hear this podcast to know that. But at the same time, the first thing we talked about on this episode was how passionate Oilers fans are. And sometimes that can go on the negative side of things too. And it's just because we love this team so much that when things go wrong, sometimes fingers can get pointed at certain players. I try to always take a positive outlook and never hammer on guys on my own team overly. But I see what you're saying. It was I think if you were to even ask Stuart Skinner, he would say that he hasn't played his best hockey so far in this series. And I think that we will see it. It just it's slowly building there. And when you allow 9 goals over a span of 2 games, not just for Skinner, but any goalie in the league is going to want to clean that up a little bit. And I fully have confidence that he will. And Gabriel, do you think Skinner played better than his numbers suggest in game 1?
Well, first of all, we have to say, if the Oilers want to win the Stanley Cup, of course, the offensive side, which is amazing, will be a major part. But if they want to get there, Stuart Skinner is the main reason, and with the defense as well, because in the beginning of the season, when the Oilers were tied in last with the San Jose Sharks, We had Skinner and Campbell, and they had the two worst average save percentage of the league, and that's the one of the most important, if it isn't the most important stat of the game, because we can have McDavid, Draisaitl, we can put anyone on ice. If the goaltending isn't reliable, isn't like even on average, we can't.
And in
We can't
fairness to
get
them,
there.
sorry to cut you off, but the whole team was playing poorly through the first month of the season. So
Yeah,
it
for sure.
wasn't just them, but it just, because it's the goaltenders, it gets amplified so much because that's such a
Mhm.
pivotal position for the team to have any type of
No,
success.
yeah, I agree. If you put the best goaltender in a better team, he will suffer. But returning to your question, then I do believe that he got almost 90% of the defense on the game one, and he played like on average, and that's what the Oilers need of Stuart Skinner. If he steals some games, he has some great defense, it's even better. But if he just play like on the game two, if he only had like an average save percentage, the Oilers could have walked away with a 2-0 lead on the series. And for example, Ken Talbot, he had such an amazing catch on the Leon Draisaitl shot on the power play that it was a game changer one. And if Skinner can have one of that, it would be great. You can decide some games and even some series for the others. But as you already said, Stuart Skinner is more than capable. I think he's still young. He's still developing his best, but he already has some playoff experience. And if he found like a good defense in front of him as well, he can be the one who helps and be a major part of bringing the Stanley Cup to Edmonton.
Oh, of course, having a strong blue line in front of any goaltender makes such a difference. And you look back at some of the best goalies of all time. They played on teams that were very solid defensively. And I think if you were to ask Skinner, when the Oilers are playing strong team defense, it makes his life a lot easier too. I thought he was really dialed in through the first half of the game. Like we said, allowing 4 goals isn't something that he's ever going to be happy with, but it was a better showing than the numbers really suggest, I think. I mean, he stopped a breakaway at a very key time right in the middle of the game when the Oilers were up 2-0, and that allowed the Oilers to not only get the save, but go down the ice and score another goal that made it 3-0. So, like I said, a key moment for that breakaway to happen. To get a piece of it and direct the Victor Arvidsson shot just aside with his blocker. And there were a couple goals that he would probably want back. I mean, 2 goals went in off a teammate's skate and into the net, which weren't his fault. Ceci had a stick break at the worst possible time. And then he attempts to swat the puck away with his glove, and it goes right into the middle of the ice where they pick it off and end up scoring a goal. And I mean, at that point, the Oilers were already still up by 2 goals late in the third period. So it wasn't like it was a backbreaking one to let in, but still, it was a tough break and kind of hurt his goals against average a little more than probably the game really indicated. And yeah, there were just some bad bounces in this game. So if you kind of take those out and just look at how he played overall, I thought he made some really good saves, and that was a key to keeping the game with the Oilers in front for, I should say, for the entire game.
No, yeah, for sure. Just to conclude, like to rephrase what I said, like when the Oilers were bad in the beginning of the season, of course the goaltending wasn't the only problem. It was the reason that they were bad. It was the whole team, but they played a major part. So it's a consequence. If you have a bad team playing not so great, the goaltending, it's hard to have a great number. But it's still like we know that the forwards and the whole team has to know that they can rely on Stuart Skinner to hold some pucks. And for example, we have like Connor Hellebuck. Like nobody would disagree that he's one of the greatest goaltendings of the.
Top 3 in the league for
nowadays.
sure.
And the last 2 games with Winnipeg, his numbers weren't great as well. So We never know what to expect the goals, even with the best ones, and but the team has to know that they can rely on Skinner in the backup.
Yeah, and goalies are going to have off nights, but I mean, he
Yeah.
finished the season with a 905 save percentage, and I believe he was a 916 from American Thanksgiving on. So once he got his game back on track after that rough start, he was, I would say, strongly above average for the whole season, and finished with a really good record too. I'll just pull up the numbers now if you give me a second. So okay, since November 24th, if my computer decides to load here. Okay, I was right. He did have a 916 save percentage, and the record is what really stands out. Now, I know a goaltender's record isn't the first numbers you usually look at. It's the save percentage and goals against, but still, you can't tell him that the wins aren't what he cares about the most. Stuart Skinner went 32-9-4 in his final 46 games. I mean, that's a pretty damn good record, and obviously it's a team record, but still, the fact that he was the one between the pipes for 32 wins in a span of 46 games, I mean, that's really impressive.
So yeah, and we all know that he can play great. That's all of the numbers that you put. Of course, we are talking right now after the game two that he had like a save percentage that wasn't great, and we all remember like last playoffs when Jack Campbell had to step in, and but we all know that Skinner can play great on the Edmonton goal.
All right, let's move on to game two now. And after falling behind 3-1 after 20 minutes, the Oilers fought back to tie the game 3-3 and 4-4 before dropping a 5-4 decision in overtime. Anze Kopitar scored the overtime winner as the Kings evened the series 1-1 heading back to LA. Gabriel, this was obviously a very disappointing loss, especially after how well the Oilers played in game one. But is the fact that they came back and forced overtime after such a brutal first period one positive that you can take out of this game?
As we could see, like in the whole season, the Oilers are a team that can come back every time. Like we always expect him to the team to like in the third period regain themselves and like uh, go for the tie or go for the win and turn around the game because the Oilers have such a strong offensive side, and in the third period they play so great that we can never doubt that they will at least tie the game that if they are in the back. But the Los Angeles Kings, we could notice that they adapted a lot. Like their game two was way different and way better than game one. Of course, like the beginning of the game it was hard because they scored 3 goals in the first period, as you already said, and Anze Kopitar had such a marvelous game. Like the Slovenian played so great. The others had to focus on, as the Kings focus on McDavid, Draisaitl, the others as well has to focus on the greatest names of Los Angeles, and as well, like as we already said, like Stuart Skinner could have made some saves. He probably for sure he wants to have some of the shots back that he could made a save, but you know it's disappointing that the others lost, but they showed that they can tie the game. They can uh, seek for the win even if they are behind in the score. And I want to point out that how amazing it was before even the anthems start. The whole crowd in Edmonton, in Rogers Place, just chanting the name of Ken Talbot and trying to reach him. And I want to warn that probably tomorrow that it will happen the game three of
Oh
the
yeah,
series.
it,
We will
it's
see
going
the
to
crowd in Los
probably
Angeles
happen in
doing
LA.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
With Stuart Skinner. Stuart Skinner has to have has to have his
Just
mindset
block it out.
well focused to not let it get to his
Yeah.
performance so nice.
I couldn't agree more. And Diego, are there any positives that you can take out of the game two loss?
Yes. Yes, the fourth line was amazing. I really liked the way they played. Yeah, Mark had a really solid game. I don't mind about Carrick, but I think he's like a very passionate player, so he can take some fights, and stand up for the team. So, and we're gonna talk about him, but Dylan Holloway was outstanding that game. So he's a big positive in my eyes. He had a really solid game. The power play was good too. I think these are the best things that happened last night, and I really liked their attitude on the power play, the team's attitude, and I also liked the way that Dylan Holloway played. So the fourth line has been a great surprise in my opinion. So I really liked.
Yeah, and that's always nice when you can get I mean, if you can even get one first line or one fourth line goal, that's big. But when the fourth line can chip in two, that gives you an even better chance to win. It's a shame that the Oilers didn't take advantage of that. But uh, as you pointed out earlier, Gabriel, the Oilers are never out of a game. They had the second most come from behind wins this season, and there's no quit in this group. The message since day one of training camp has been cup or bust, and this team is hungry to win. And you can see, even after they fell behind 3-1, I never felt like they were out of the game. I felt like this is, if they can just even get one power play goal, which they ended up getting to, that was actually the one that tied it. But then that really will tilt the game in their favor. But they have the horses to erase deficits late in games. So even if you're going into the third period and the Oilers are down by a couple goals, I still have faith that this team can get back and pull the game even. So it was great that after they let in that tough goal early in the third period, Stuart Skinner let in a goal from distance to Kevin Fiala that not only was he able to shake that off and the Oilers get back, but they ended up tying it just a couple minutes later. So yeah, like I said, they came back twice, tied the game twice, and it's just a shame that they couldn't finish it on the right note and get a big comeback win in the playoffs. But still, if they play the way that they can for 60 minutes, I don't think the Kings can hang with them. But they just dug themselves a bit of a hole in game two and were chasing. They need to get back to how this team was playing in game one, where they got out to an early lead and just sort of were well in control from there. All right, so we know the Oilers and Kings play completely different styles. The Oilers are a lethal offensive team that does a ton of damage off the rush and on the power play, while the Kings are a more defensive-minded club that likes to capitalize on their opponent's mistakes. And when the Kings get a lead, they are just fully content to sit on it and not push for offense. Diego, how important is it to score first for the rest of the series and force the Kings to open up a bit?
Very important because, as you said, they're a defensive team. They have a 1-3-1 kind of structure that annoys a lot of teams. And try to block. Make them dump the puck. They lose the battle in the neutral zone. So it's the Kings' way of playing, and they would try to rip shots, from the bull dot, the dots, trying to get a tip in the middle and screen the goalie. That's the kind of play they want to play because they don't have the offensive firepower. I'm sorry, that we have. The Oilers have.
That's a good point.
And that's the way they want to win the games. They want to annoy the other teams. But I don't think this can be sustainable because when the Oilers are on their game, they're unstoppable. We saw on game one. We can break their structure. And if they score first, they will make the Kings expose themselves because they will have to open space. They will have to change their structure and try to score a goal. They want to capitalize on mistakes. As you said, if they get a lucky bounce, so be it. They will keep it. They will keep it trying to prevent games. But preventing goals against. And I think they're pretty happy with the way they play. But they cannot contain that offense that the Oilers have, and I still believe that once we score first, it will like open up the gates and we're gonna score even more as it was shown on game one. So it is extremely important. And I suppose that for the Oilers team, this kind of mindset has been has been spread around in the locker room. So they want to score first. They want to expose the Kings. They want to make them go after, you know, the Oilers. And I think there will be lots of chances, you know, if the Kings go chase the game in this case, right?
Yeah. And Gabriel, scoring first is always crucial in the playoffs, but do you think it becomes an even bigger factor against a team like the Kings who play that trap 1-3-1 system that Diego talked about?
Yeah, this 1-3-1 system is a great one, but as the others have a lot of players with such a good speed, for example, McDavid that everybody knows, and Ryan McLeod, the Oilers knows how to get to the system. The others knows how to penetrate better than the other NHL teams. That's why they in the two previous series it was great. It was well manageable, but the Oilers end up as the winners in both of them, even with one ending in 6 games and other in 7 games. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't. But this year, like for example, the Los Angeles Kings teams on paper, like it's supposed to be more manageable for the Oilers. One great example is like the trade that brought Pierre-Luc Dubois to to the Los Angeles. I remember exactly how Alex Cefalo and mostly Gabriel Villardi, how they got to the nerves of the Edmonton Oilers fans.
Yeah.
Like they played so great in the last 2 series, and when I saw that they traded them, like I said, wow.
I think most Oilers fans were pretty happy about that they were leaving the division.
Of course. When I saw, and Rasmus Kupari was as well on the trade, but I still remember how Iafalo and mostly Villardi. I remember exactly how they played in the last two series. But talking about game two specifically, it was a game like so many details that the Oilers could have ended up with the win. For example, as you said, the shot that Fiala was a long distance shot that Skinner let have a goal. And for example, Cody Ceci had such a great chance with the open net and he missed the net. Draisaitl, as I already said on the power play, Ken Talbot made such a huge save to keep the Kings ahead on the score. So, and even if the Oilers having such details going against them, having to rely like on a night of Dylan Holloway two goals game and Brett Kulak scoring, even with all of that, the Kings only won the game on the overtime. So of course the Oilers have to readjust, have to play their best, have to get on the ice hungrier, as Diego said. But I do believe when they get to the zone, when they play at their best and relying on the defense, mostly on goaltending, they can search for the win and they can return to Edmonton with a great advantage on the series.
Yeah, and when you have a series like this where the two teams play such different styles, I think the best thing you can do is to force your opponent to play the style of game that you want to. And the only way that the Oilers can really do that is by building up a lead. Because if they go down 2-0, we know exactly what the Kings are going to do. It's going to be exactly what we saw in game two. They are just going to chip the puck down the ice and they won't even get in on the forecheck. They'll just be sitting back waiting for you to make a move. And that's going to be a trouble for the Oilers to have to try and break through that. And like you said, Gabriel, even though they are able to penetrate it better than some other teams, having to go through that for 60 minutes is still going to be a daunting task. And because the Kings play that style so well and are so structured defensively, it does force the Oilers to get a little bit creative and try and break that down a bit. So my hope is that in game three that they can have a similar start to game one, at least score first and not allow the Kings to just really sit back. You want them to trade chances with you a little more, because if the Kings can start playing the Oilers style of hockey and open it up to a little more wide open game, then that benefits Edmonton a lot. And then I'm really confident that they'll get the result they're looking for, because no one can play Oilers hockey the way this team can. And even the best teams in the league don't want to trade chances with Edmonton. So that will be something I'm really looking for as Game 3 starts up. And you mentioned Dylan Holloway a minute ago. Let's go there now. I mean, although his team came up short, Holloway had a postseason breakout, scoring twice, including the game-tying goal in the third period. Gabriel, how impressed were you with Holloway? And do you think that he should be moved up the lineup for Game 3?
Everyone was impressed, I believe. Even himself, Dylan Holloway was impressed. Like, scoring his first one on such a huge game on Game 2 that the others could open a 2-0 margin on the series. It was great. But scoring the second one right after, it was even better, even great. I do believe like he can get to the third line, for example. And as Evander Kane is not playing 100% healthy, as he himself said, but he's still a important part of the team, of course, and he could get that spot. And the third line with Holloway, McLeod, and Corey Perry already played so great in the regular season, and a little bit on the playoff that Chris Knobloch got them together. So indeed, it will be such a huge boost for the confidence for Dylan Holloway and for the whole team as well. But that they can rely on the bottom six. Like I said, you have to rely on the goaltending, you have to rely on the defense. But great teams that win Stanley Cups have a good amount of goals and assists and participation on the wins from the bottom six, as we had on the Game 2, for example. McDavid didn't score a goal, like Hyman got one, but Draisaitl didn't. For example, the top six wasn't on the score sheet so great, but the bottom six put the game on, put the Oilers on a position to fight for the win, even with the problems in defense and goaltending with Skinner. 2 goals from Dylan Holloway and 1 goal from Brett Kulak. In the majority of times, 9 times out of 10 is enough to guarantee a win for the Oilers.
Yeah,
but.
And Diego, do you think Holloway should be elevated in the lineup after potting a pair of goals in Game 2?
That's a good question. I don't know. Based on the last game, I think he could swap places with Fogle and have a look on the second line. So he's a young kid. He brings a lot of energy. Maybe Fogle could bring a lot of fight on the fourth line, since he's a very physical forward too. And maybe playing with skilled players such as Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Holloway can shine even more. So that would be a great look, and I would love to see it. But I don't know if you're gonna mess up with the chemistry that he's having with Janmark so far. And the fourth line, as I mentioned, I really liked their games, their first 2 games. I don't think they were responsible for the goals against, and they brought a lot of energy. So I don't know if Knobloch is thinking about this and messing up with the lines, or maybe changing the lines. But everybody's like cheering for Holloway to be elevated on top line 6 role, and I really like the idea. I'm for this idea, actually, to be honest. But I don't know if this is gonna happen this playoffs. But if it happens, I would love to see it, and I think he's gonna succeed. I'm very optimistic about that.
And I don't know if they need to move him off the fourth line necessarily for the next game, but maybe the solution is to give the fourth line a few more minutes. And when they score 2 goals, it's hard not to. That line was, arguably the Oilers' best line in the game, which doesn't always say as much for the first 3 lines. But at the same time, coming into the playoffs, it's hard to argue too much with how the top 9 was constructed. They had a pretty clear idea Chris Knobloch and his staff of what they wanted. And you look at the three guys, like I think Carrick was a solid pickup at the deadline, someone who could be that gritty two-way center. And I should also mention, he picked up his first career playoff point with an assist on Holloway's first goal. So nice. Holloway getting his first ever playoff goal, Carrick getting his first ever playoff point and assist there too. So good for him, especially at age 32, I believe he is, to have to wait this long to finally play in the playoffs and then get that early point out of the way. So good for him. And really, Dylan Holloway has looked very good since he was recalled. He has 3 goals, or he should say he had 3 goals and 5 points in 6 games to close out the regular season, and now has continued on with 2 goals through 2 games in the playoffs. So when he was down in Bakersfield, you saw him hovering right around that point per game pace, and coming up to the the NHL, I should say. I don't think that anyone thought that Dylan Holloway was going to sort of continue that same rate of scoring, but he has to this point. And this is the player that the Oilers expected him to be when they drafted him. They didn't take him in the first round 4 years ago for him to play on the fourth line.
Yes.
And, he is still just 22 and has a way to go in his development, because I think that we haven't even seen him play a full NHL season yet. He's only played 30, or I guess he's played 89 total games in the NHL. But last year he got into 51, this year just 38, and finished with 9 points in each of those seasons. But you can sort of see that there is a player there, and I think that we are going to see a big breakout at some point. He can play with skill. In the few times he's had the opportunity to skate alongside Connor McDavid, I think he's looked he's looked fine with him. And he even scored a goal, I remember, in Anaheim, a nice feed from McDavid behind the net. So that's something to think about down the road. But if they are pretty set in stone with that top line, maybe Holloway eventually gets more of a look in Fogel's spot on the second line. Because as great as Fogel was this season, scoring a career-high 20 goals, I don't know that he's permanently locked down that spot next to Leon on the right side. So that is something that we might have to wait till training camp to see. I'm not sure he's going to play at a top 6 role for the rest of the playoffs, but it's something that we should be thinking about more going forward, because when you are going to have expensive contracts on this team, I mean, McDavid needs a new deal in 2 years. Leon needs a new contract a year from now. Bouchard's going to get a huge raise. Having some guys on cheap deals, like a Holloway, who actually needs to sign an extension, I guess it would be this summer, because he's finishing up his entry-level deal. Even having a guy like that who could potentially fill a top 6 spot for around $1 million a year would really help this team.
Yes, no doubt. I think he's on the verge of having a breakout season.
Yeah.
And he has shown lots of qualities. And there's a comment that we'll never forget about him. On the day he was drafted, there was a question someone asked, what kind of player do you like to shape your game? And he said, I like to model my game on Landeskog and Jonathan Toews. I don't know if this is how you pronounce Toews. Yep. Jonathan Toews?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. And I loved, because these are like big names in hockey, So
I actually think he plays a lot like Taylor Hall. Now that's just stylistically. I'm not saying that Holloway's going to have the same type of career as Taylor Hall and be a Hart Trophy winner and score 90 points in his peak season. But I think that we are going to see Holloway eventually get up to being a guy that you can count on in the top 6. I'm not sure it'll be a lock for next season, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's really pushing for that in training camp.
Yes, I agree with you. I think he has all the looks of being a solid top 6 forward. And if he looks like Taylor Hall, we're in good shape.
Yeah, both from Calgary too, or the Calgary area, I guess. Dylan Holloway is technically from Bragg Creek, but
Yes.
within driving distance. Funny, he grew up a Flames fan, and his family all lives in the Calgary area, and now he's playing for the Oilers. So good to see there's a few Oilers fans in enemy territory. And
It is.
okay, so outside of Holloway, I'm not sure that anyone on the Oilers had a particularly great game, and that doesn't mean the entire team was terrible, but they needed some more out of their key cogs on the team. Diego, who do you need to see more from in Game 3?
I would like to see a better performance from the third line. I think they didn't move the needle this last game, and maybe we could have seen a better performance, especially from Perry and McLeod, or even Kane. Kane has been struggling. He has undisclosed his injury. He has an injury, and I don't know if this was a positive, but I don't blame him for saying that. But actually, thinking about the game, uh, I would love to see a better effort from the third line and maybe a better matchup against the Kings lines. I don't know if they match up against Pierre-Luc Dubois, right?
Yeah.
I, I don't know if the third line matches with this line, but I would love to see a better effort from the third line. I think they're playing a little below from their real capacity, let's say.
Yeah. And I think that's fair too. It just when you look at this team top to bottom, I'm looking at some of the top guys. I thought they were all fine. I don't think anyone was that bad, but to win in the playoffs, you need your best players to be your best players, and they weren't that in Game 2. Gabriel, who do you think really needs to step up in Game 3?
Yeah, first of all, I have to agree with Diego. The third line wasn't very effective. That's why my first thought about Dylan Holloway was to put him on the third line, thinking about how McLeod, Kane, and Perry didn't play so great. But obviously, I agree that if there is a spot on top six for him to place on the Warren Fogel's one, and if he's playing so good with Carrick and Yamark, imagine what he would play with Nugent Hopkins and Draisaitl by his side. But returning to your question, the obvious answer was the goalie, the Stuart Skinner, that they looking for his save percentage. He had almost an 800, but is way below average, and we all know that he can be way better as well. But the defense as a whole, I believe, like I can't say that like Darnell Nurse had a bad game. He had like a solid one, but it will be remembered in the Anze Kopitar's game winner on the overtime that he was all alone in defense and Cody Ceci was far away from the
And
spot on the
sometimes,
field.
even if you had a decent night, one glaring mistake can kind of influence the way you remember how that player played in the game.
Yeah, I can say that they had a bad game, but when the others needed the most, they made a it's not a mistake, but they didn't play great. But of course, the Oilers have such greatest names as Draisaitl, McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, and they weren't at the best. We know that they can play way better. As I said, even the Oilers playing not so great, it was only on the details that the Kings could find a win. So we know that the Oilers can find a can go for a win, even if they are falling behind, like in game two. We all remember in game four last year, like the Kings were leading 2-1, and then the first period of game four was terrible, 3-0 to the Kings, and then the others could come back and that unforgettable goal of the Kaimo. But I do believe the whole team can play way better. And as you said, Eric, there wasn't like one player that we can say, oh, that player was bad. No, it
Yeah.
was, but we all know that all of them can be better. Like we only can expect the same of Dylan Holloway, who had an outstanding game, an extraordinary game, and Brett Kulak, of course, Matthias Janmark. But if you have these players playing great, As I already said, like when Dylan Holly scores 2 goals, Brett Kula scores one, 95% of time the Oilers get the win.
Yeah. When you get those kind of contributions, because you're pretty much banking on McDavid to have a couple points as well,
Yeah.
and at that point you'd be pretty sure that you're walking away with a victory there. And unfortunately, the big guns who all were a huge factor in the game one victory were sort of absent in that regard in game two. So I want to see the top line especially get back to what they were doing in game one when they get to LA for game three. And you did talk about the third line. I'll specifically point out Corey Perry there. Now, this is a guy with almost 200 games of playoff experience. I believe that tomorrow night's game, which is game three in LA, will be his 198th in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So more than anyone else on this Oilers team has. And he got goaded into taking a couple unnecessary penalties in game two. And when he is being a pest out there and irritating the other team and forcing them to take bad penalties, that's when you love him. But when Corey Perry crosses the line and starts to take some of those penalties of himself, it gets a little frustrating. So I'd like to see him be on the other end of the penalty box that time, where he's the one getting the Kings players to step over the line and end up in the box where the Oilers power play can thrive. So I'll be looking for him to be on top of it. He's played a ton of games throughout his career in LA, having being a former member of the Anaheim Ducks for 15 years. So he knows that building well. He knows this team well. And that's going to be one guy I'm really expecting more from. And you look at McDavid and Draisaitl. Draisaitl scored a beautiful goal in game one. Once again, he was decent in game two, but there was a great opportunity. I think it was Diego who mentioned it earlier in the podcast, or it might have been you, Gabriel. I'm trying to remember now, where who said Cam Talbot made an unbelievable save to deny Draisaitl of a one-timer in game two. And those are the kind of saves that you were hoping to get from Stuart Skinner that we just didn't see. So maybe Draisaitl puts one more of those in the back of the net. I mean, McDavid still did pick up one assist too, but you'd probably like to see him be a little more of a factor on the score sheet. I think McDavid needs to start shooting a little more now. And yes, he was very focused on the assist milestone this year and setting up his teammates. And it's hard to blame him when he's so good at creating offense and playmaking. But this is a guy who has scored 64 goals in the league before, and we know that he's one of the best goal scorers in the league. So I want to see him cutting to the middle of the ice and using that shot a little more often, because we know he has it. And even though he has 6 assists through 2 games, it's time to add a goal to that stat line. So I'll be looking for him to get on the score sheet tomorrow night. And Stuart Skinner, another guy. And I know we've talked about him a couple times already, but 9 goals allowed in 2 games, not something that he's probably too pleased with. So I'll be looking for him to keep it to 2 or fewer tomorrow night. And hopefully the Oilers can pull off a 2 or 3 goal win, and Stuart Skinner will be a big part of that.
No, and I want to emphasize that we cannot underestimate the Los Angeles Kings. It's a great team. It's a hard team, as we already know.
Players too.
Yeah,
they can't match the Oilers' top end talent.
Yeah,
but
especially on the
defense.
Have skill.
Yeah,
especially on defense, they are great. Like we all saw what Anze Kopitar can do, but Adrian Kempe had such a great game. Cam Talbot was such a clutch goalie when he was needed, and we all know how the Los Angeles Kings are great. And to be honest, I think there wasn't any fan who thought that the Oilers are going to sweep the Kings. Like everybody saw that, maybe the Oilers can. The most optimistic one, maybe the Oilers can win 5, even in 6. But we all know that the Los Angeles Kings are a great team that is going to be hard to pass through them, even with the Oilers having 2 straight wins in the playoffs against them. But we cannot expect that the others.
Well, I mean, speaking of,
go
sorry, go ahead, Gabriel.
No, no, just to conclude that the Oilers can play well, and even if the Kings got ahead in the series that we hope, or not 3 times here, and it won't happen, but the Oilers can get back as well. It's not desperate. Like we all know, the Kings are a great team.
Yeah, I like that you did the actual knock on wood there too. I'm pretty sure the mics picked that up. And lastly, before we wrap up the show, I just want to get some predictions from you guys since we're talking about it. Who do you think ends up winning the series and in how many games? Gabriel, go ahead.
I say the Oilers win in 6 games because it will be tough. I want to say 5, but it will be in 6.
And Diego, what's your prediction for the rest of the series?
I agree with Gabriel. I'm predicting 6 games, but I'm not sure this is going to 6. It might go to 7. But I will agree with Gabriel, so I'm going to stick to 6 because I wouldn't like to suffer for too much.
Well, when I did my series preview podcast earlier this week, I said Oilers in 5, so I'm going to stick with that. I think they do have a good opportunity to go down to LA and win both games on the road and come back home and wrap it up Game 5 at Rogers Place. So I'm going to say that. I didn't picture it going this way. I thought the Oilers would win both games on home ice and probably drop one of the two on the road, but if I'm going to stick with my prediction, then they're going to have to just change up the order of those wins a little bit. So looking at the rest of the playoffs, they're going to have some tough matchups. And this Kings team is very likely going to be the weakest opponent that they will play in the playoffs this spring. So I think that making quick work of them and winning this series as quickly as possible is very important because that gives them a little bit of extra rest time before finding out who they would then be playing between Nashville and Vancouver in the second round. And then, of course, if you get by them, there's 3 Stanley Cup contenders in the Central Division that you're probably going to run into as well. So, guys, just before we call it a night, I want to just ask for anyone listening to the show that wants to read more of your stuff, where can they find you? Where can they follow you?
If I may start, I have the Edmonton Oilers Brazil account on Twitter. That is EDM Oilers BR. I posted it in Portuguese because it's an account made for the Brazilian fans. I know it's a minority of the fans, but it's made to get them to know to present this marvelous sport to the Brazilians. But of course, the Twitter has the button to translate if you want to interact, if you want to answer, if you want to agree or disagree. It will be great to have a conversation about the Oilers. So,
well, I still need to work on my Portuguese a lot, so I'll admit I do translate all of your tweets so I can understand them. And Gabriel, just before I go to Diego, do you ever talk to the admin of the Kings Brazil account during this series?
I'm not directly. Like I repost some of his posts, but I didn't talk to him to be honest. But we only like each other. The same. I never answered his posts. He never answered me back. Like we talk like the regular season. He spoke like, oh, the 1-3-1 works so well in the NHL. Except against the Oilers. Then I said, oh, it's because McDavid and McLeod are fast. But it's hard. It's hard. But like the Brazilian community, I do believe all the 32 teams have Brazilian account to comment on.
That's awesome too to see
games.
How much the hockey community has grown in Brazil.
Yeah, and all of them like posting Portuguese to get the sport to call more Brazilians one. Sometimes I answer in English, of course, like here that I'm speaking in English, but as the account is focused on the Brazilian fans. But if you don't want to hit the button in translation, Diego posts in English and he does such an excellent job doing it.
He does. And Diego, where can we find those tweets?
You can find me on Twitter or X as we call now.
I think I'll always call it Twitter. I say that often. But...
And I didn't think about calling X. I just thought Twitter, and now I thought about it.
Yes, and I will always love this name, So why call it X, It's not a nice name. But anyways, you can find me on Twitter. Like my account there's Diego PR Barros with double R. You know. So I normally tweet most of my posts in English since most of my followers are are not from Brazil. But if you interact with me in Portuguese, I will surely answer you in Portuguese too. So and we can debate, we can have some conversation, exchange some ideas, and speak more about the Oilers because everyone here loves the Oilers, and I'm just one more of them.
Well, guys, I
Oh
want to
yeah,
say thanks again for being on the show. You're two of my
And
favorite guests. You always give awesome Oilers analysis, and let's make sure that we do this again, hopefully before the Stanley Cup playoffs are over.
no,
yes,
for sure,
hopefully,
for sure. And
for sure. And
sorry,
guys,
Diego, if you want.
I just want to mention how good it is to talk to you about the Oilers. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for giving us fans all around the world, Eric. I don't know if I can speak on behalf of me and Gabriel in this case, but we do appreciate your work as a host, and you're giving this opportunity to us to speak about the Oilers is such a great thing. So we truly appreciate that, and we are blessed to have you as a friend and partner.
No, and of course you can talk on behalf of me as well because I share the same opinion as we already share a lot of opinions here. But just before I say I appreciate you guys, I just want to say that we have the Oilers Brazil group in WhatsApp, and right now we have like
Yes,
52 members, and we talk a lot only in Portuguese, only Brazilians.
yes,
Like some of them live in Edmonton, some of them live in other places, but it's a community that is it's a lot. Of course, 52 it's a small number compared to another sports, but it's a
Yeah,
passionate,
it's growing though. That I mean, the
it's a
fact that there's
passionate group.
52 Oilers fans that want to speak about the team in Portuguese, I can only imagine what it will be like a year from now or 5 years from now. And I want to say thank you to both of you for the kind words. I really appreciate that. And I mean, like I said, you've been on my show 7 times, which is tied for the most of any guest. So I mean, clearly two guys who I really enjoy talking Oilers hockey with, and I'm sure that people listening to this can tell that you are very devoted fans of the team and know the Oilers well. So please go give Gabriel and Diego a follow if you aren't already doing so. You can also follow me at Eric J. Friesen. You can follow this podcast at 99 Forever Pod. Gabriel, Diego, thanks again.
No, come on. I'm the one who wants to thank you. Like for 7 times, I remember you were one of the first that saw what I was doing in Portuguese, me and Diego
yes,
combined it. And I remember as well the first time you called me to be here. It was such a great opportunity. It was searching that something that I was searching for such a long time. But for the first, the second, now that is the seventh time, we can be here like 700 times. It will always be a pleasure, and I want to thank you to give us the opportunity that is so hard to find here, so far away from Canada, from Edmonton, to speak about the team that we all love.
yes. I make my words Gabriel words.
All right,
And let's go Oilers, and let's hope that Eric's prediction was the right one, and the Oilers beat the Kings in 5 games.
Yes, 100%. Let's go Oilers, guys. Let's get the cup.
let's go Oilers. All right, guys, have a good night.
Have a good night.
So for Gabriel Candido and Diego Pontes, I'm Eric Friesen. This has been the 99 Forever podcast. We're out.